So, welcome to my first teacher presentation about distributed ledger technology, blockchain. Blockchain is one of the distributed ledger technology that's out there that safely and securely records the transactions across multiple computers without the intermediaries like banks. This will result in more cost and time efficiency. Blockchain is also highly focused on consensus. This makes a really secure network because when new information or transactions want to be included into the block, this first needs to be validated or given consent by a minimum of 50% of the blockchain participants, also called nodes. Yeah, this is just why it's also almost impossible to infiltrate wrongfully information when the network is big enough, because you need 50% of people to validate the information. Because when you participate in a small network, it gets more attached to risk, because less people need to validate, and only if you have 3 people and you have 50% need to validate to ensure the validation, yeah, there's more risk attached to this. Also, it's hard to tamper with because each block has a unique fingerprint, as you can say, also called the hash of the block. This hash is basically a mathematical puzzle that is created by the information that's included into the block, but also the information of the previous block. So when you create more blocks, this puzzle gets more complex and complex. And that's why it's also hard to tamper with this system, this process. Okay, when we look further into the blocks, they always exist are three components. One component is where the data and the transactions are stored in. You have the hash. This is like the identical fingerprint of the block, but also the hash of the previous block is the last component, because each of this block is connected to the last or the previous block. So this shows that it is like a continuous secure chain of information. Before a block can be added to the blockchain, it needs to be by the miners. And we will come more in the miners in the next slide. But before you can close the block, you need to be validated. And once the validation is completed, the information is like permanently stored in this block and is immutable, which means that there's no possible way to change the information inside it, which is really transparent because you can look back the information. Okay, going back to the miners. Miners kind of make sure that the validation of each transactions are made. They can't do this on their own because after a time these mathematical puzzles are so complex that you just need a large amount of computational powers to solve these puzzles and like safely close validate the blocks and create new blocks for more transactions to be made. Because the miners have a great influence on the security of the blocks, because when there more blocks are created, it gets more secured, and that's why it's rewarded. And I will go more further into the Bitcoin rewards. In this time, the Bitcoin rewards for Bitcoin miners is 3.125 BTC. That equals to 152,924 euros and 53 cents. And this is only for free Bitcoin. As we look back into to 2009, the reward for Bitcoin mining was 50 Bitcoins. Imagine the amount that you would have in this period of time if you hold all the Bitcoin that you have. But because after all these years, Bitcoin has introduced Bitcoin halvings. Each 4 years, the Bitcoin rewards will get halved, which means that there is less and less Bitcoin introduced to the circulation within the circulation, which make it more scarce and also more valuable in the eyes of some investors. But the purpose of these rewards is basically like to give the participants of the blockchain incentives to keep participating, but also to introduce new Bitcoins into the circulation. The significance of the blockchain. So the blockchain has just a great potential for the financial markets because it's the best part is that it is a really secure network and it eliminates intermediaries. And this results in less transaction cost because intermediaries means more fees, and payment settlement time gets also be reduced because there are just no intermediaries that need to be validating more. And when you want to make a huge payment to someone and it needs to be valid if overviewed in like a few days, this just takes a lot of time. But in this case with the blockchain, this is not needed anymore, and this just has great potential in my eyes as well. And because of the consensus and the immutability, the blockchain is just a really safe way to store data and view back without a lot of errors in storing this information. So this was my presentation about this blockchain. I hope you find it useful, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.